Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Aman here. Aman, you're building a company that is very forward thinking in the advertising world. You're using AI to deliver, mobile advertising solutions and help businesses grow. And taking AI and putting advertising together is something that's, a bit different and gives you a lot of different insights and understandings that maybe you wouldn't be able to figure out elsewhere. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Awesome. So just kind of going back to the beginning, the foundation, how did your interest in entrepreneurship happen? Why specifically the advertising space why was that a space that you got interested in? And how does this all come together with AI?
Sure. So look, I think from a very young age, when I was in high school, like I was always like, how do I make some cash, right?
Yeah.
So, back in the day, in the late 90s, I grew up in New Delhi, India. So, internet was a little late getting there, and you had dial-up internet, right? Like you remember the modem tone. So
Mhm.
and there were not too many websites if you think about it. So what people used to do in I think many countries were there was a thing called bulletin board service. So you create your own mini intranet and you let people log into your computer and browse. So I created one, and it used to run only at night because we had only one phone line at home. So at night, I'll turn it on, people would log in, and then randomly, like Pepsi reached out to me and they paid me like 10,000 rupees, which is about like to put their logo on the bulletin board, which is about in today's worth is like $250, which is a huge deal for a kid in India, right? So I'm like, okay, like you have to do something yourself always, right? So that's how kind of I got started, and like my journey into advertising is also pretty interesting. So this is a very crazy story. So I used to work in financial services. I have studied engineering. Somehow I got into financial services, like many people do. And I used to work for a company called HSBC,
Mhm.
which is or was the largest bank in the world at that point. And I used to live in Chicago, and I used to commute from Chicago, going to the suburbs to my office. And I found I made some friends on the train. We used to take the same train every day, same time. One of the folks I met was a wife of a senior employee at a company called OMD, and I didn't know what OMD was or what it did. Figured out it was an advertising company. And one day they said that she said that I would love for you to meet my husband and his boss who want to talk to you. And I was like, why? And they said, well, they're looking for people who know how to do math. And I
Mm.
was like, I don't know anything about advertising. And she's like, that's fine, just meet with them. So I met with them and they said that, listen, these days, this is like, I was call it like mid 2000s now, right? 2005. Like they said, these days, what's happening is there's something called online advertising. So people, you see ads on a website and you go like, yeah, it's like, so we are the ones who actually buy those ads for our clients. So I figured out that OMD was the largest ad agency in the world. Okay. And they had clients like McDonald's, Pepsi, H&R Block, Best Buy, and they would buy ads for them across all media, television, radio, print, and now digital. And they said that while the measurement frameworks for all the other media is pretty standard, and because they have been going on for decades, we have no idea how to explain the efficacy of online advertising to clients. So we need people who know hardcore math and who can help us explain, how this advertising works. So I told them, how does it work? As in, like, what do you tell your clients? So they opened up a spreadsheet for one client. It was one line. $1 million was spent, how many impressions they got, what was the click-through rate, and that's it. And I was like, so you sell this for $1 million? And they were like, yep. I was like, okay, how do I sign up for this job? So that's how I got into advertising. So I started from the other side, where I was on the client side, explaining clients how their media buys are working.
Mm.
And then eventually, I started another interesting thing, Ben, was all the tools we used were companies in San Francisco. Every company was in San Francisco. So essentially, OMD was kind of Walmart selling Levi's jeans who were made in San Francisco. So I
Mm.
proactively moved to San Francisco, worked at many, many startups, all advertising startups, obviously. And then eventually, I was at a company where I built a real-time bidding platform. And I had no idea what a real-time bidding platform was. I built it and I sold it, as in I was the only seller. And I took it to like a 4 million run rate in 3 months time frame. And I was like, if I can do this alone as a mid-level employee at this company, I think I'm ready to start my own company. So, that's how I got into kind of like starting my own company. And,
Mm.
like back in the day, there was no AI or machine learning. Like those were just basic concepts that, people knew of. And, the journey of AI has been amazing in advertising. like back in the day, you open up a spreadsheet and you look at some cuts and you kind of optimize your media plan, right? And you buy more media where optimize, things are happening. And it was a heavy duty exercise. And then eventually, all these things got automated using some basic machine learning model. And then what happened was, you know, like physicists started coming into this field, from either from Wall Street or actually from like the physics background. It started building very complicated models. These models would find hidden correlations that humans can never find because there's just not enough hours in the day to look at data. And that's how AI and advertising kind of came together. So pretty interesting kind of story of how AI and advertising came together.
Yeah. Did you like how did you think about building an AI first advertising company and like positioning that? I mean, because AI people use it as a buzzword, they think of different
Yeah,
ways, to market around that, but you're doing real stuff with AI. How did you kind of explain that to people and position that there's a lot of benefit to AI here with
sure,
advertising?
sure. So I think, look, at the end of the day, what do advertisers want, right? They want efficiency, right?
Mhm.
And if you think about our company, Aarki, we are measured and we live and die by performance, right? We are the most bottom of the funnel. Like our business is very simple. We help publishers mostly on mobile phones attract new clients, right? So if you have a mobile app, you work with us for new clients or getting new users or retaining existing users, right? So these advertisers are highly focused on performance, and performance is measured by third party. Like we don't grade our own homework. It's some other companies that we use or that the clients actually select to grade our homework. Okay. So it's very high performance. And at the same time, if we don't perform, we get cut immediately. Right. So it's like it's the worst form of advertising that somebody can actually offer to somebody. Okay. But also like very rewarding when it works for both sides. Right. So I think if you think about from an advertiser lens, there's there's publishers on one side where you have ad space, and then there's advertising dollars that the advertisers have, right? What's the most efficient way for them to spend that money so that they get the full dollar towards the publisher, right? So that there's maximum benefit for the advertiser. So that's why I think folks on the performance angle are interested in AI, because we can churn so much data using machine learning and very advanced techniques, and also do lots of personalization, right? And get the right message in front of the right publisher. At the same time, all this is happening in real time. Okay. Like we are listening to 6 million ad requests per second. That's how much data we are processing. And that's like petabytes of data, like every day. And once you process their data and you have the infrastructure to do it, you can be very efficient in how you buy media. So I think that's why advertisers are interested in it. And I think my passion comes from like, I want to help the advertisers at the end of the day. And I want to cut out all the middlemen from this supply chain. And there's, as you said, there's many companies who use all these buzzy words, right? Like, and I tell advertisers like, hey, if somebody says they have AI, you should ask them, do you have your own platform? And if
Mm.
so, can I take a look at it in terms of how it works? And if they say, hey, sorry, it's all opaque and a black box, that means it's all bullshit, right? They're lying to you.
One of the things that I found most fascinating was you were able to process 5 million ad requests a second from over 10 billion devices. How are you able to do something like that? Is it, I mean, you're
Sure.
getting that info, but how does that work?
Sure. So look, we invested in our own data centers, right?
Mhm.
We understand, like, if you think about what's happening with Gen AI, right? And
Mhm.
what's happening with like Tesla with full self-driving, that's a lot of data consumption, and it's going to only keep increasing. The compute is only keep increasing over time. So a lot of companies are on the cloud, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is if you scale AI in the future, you need more compute. So you're paying more and more dollars to these cloud companies. Okay. And
Mhm.
at one point, I think it becomes okay. But when you're growing and scaling and you don't know where the end point is, especially in AI, you don't know how much money you will invest in that, right? And that money is gone. It's like renting a server or renting a computer. So we made a conscious effort at Aarki to create our own data center. So we own and operate all our data centers end to end, all the way from power supply to the hard disk to the RAM, right?
Mhm.
We own 4 data centers across the globe, two in US, one in Europe, and one in Asia. So we can listen to all the different ad calls from all the different publishers of the world and provide a unique experience to our advertisers.
Yeah, I mean, so there's been this big shift, it seems, from away from traditional to what you're doing now. and you've got this like all vertically integrated. I mean, it's one whole system that you control all of that. I mean, I'm sure that that's reduces costs and is very optimal for people to sign up with you.
100%. So look, our costs don't scale as we scale our
Mhm.
business. So our costs are capped because we essentially own the bare metal servers. And like my philosophy is very simple. There's two ways to think about business in advertising. One is you can keep increasing your margins, right? And the dollars kind of and the efficiencies gained are kind of you know you keep them, or you can kind of spread the love, right? So my philosophy is let's not keep all the margins to ourselves. We can distribute it both to the publishers and to the advertisers, and you can create 1 + 1 = 3. So I think our fixed costs actually increase performance for both our publisher partners who we buy media from and for our advertiser partners who are sending us dollars.
How important, Amon, was your SaaS background before? And I mean, you built a pretty successful SaaS company. Does that translate a lot, very much over to what you're doing now? I mean, there's a huge software component here.
Sure. So I think my first business was also in advertising, the company called Zip Media. It was mostly focused on helping large media conglomerates who have traditional media advertising as their offering, like TV station groups, radio station groups, right? To offer digital advertising, bundled with them. So it made sense that it's a SaaS company. And we essentially sold our software to these companies and they utilized that software to create a unified media plan
Mhm.
to sell advertising. So the thing was, there are lots of parallels from what I did there and what I do at Aarki. Uh, at Zip Media, we utilize third-party sales forces, and we learned a lot from how those sales forces operate. And I'm using the same principles, building kind of our machinery and our sales force. So very similar businesses, just different sorts of clients and how we kind of impact the advertisers. There was one big difference though, because we were kind of in the middle, we never really talked to the advertisers, right? So I could never really actually solve advertiser pain points. I had to go through a middleman. Here, I can actually talk to the advertisers and solve problems directly. And it's a much more efficient way of doing it.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I think you're in a different place now. I mean, compared to what you're building earlier. It's also fascinating. You're able to apply neural networks to advertising. I mean, you kind of look at some of these more complex, I mean, deep neural networks. You kind of look at some of these more like complex areas, and you think like, in AI specifically, you think like these apply outside of advertising. Maybe these are just really research focused, or they're for medical. But like you're able to apply that to advertising. How do deep neural networks help you in the advertising space?
Sure. So, as I mentioned before, right? At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you find pockets of performance
Mhm.
and buy more where the performance is and buy less where the performance is not, right? Like that's a basic principle of advertising, right? Now, if a human were doing this exercise, it's impossible that they can look at all today in today's world, like as I said, right, you're listening to 6 million ad requests per second, right? There's no way a human system or a basic algorithm can do that. So
Mhm.
with deep neural networks, the biggest differentiation is it finds hidden correlations that humans cannot find, right? So it'll find some weird things that you and I can never discuss as a human being, like, like, oh, stop, shit, like this is happening over there somewhere. So it surfaces all these hidden connections between different data points. And with that, we are able to create very unique audiences for our clients, which even our clients could not have think of. I'll give you an example. So we have a product where we listen to the client feed, right? We call it postback. And we are listening to it in real time. And based on all the signals that our neural network has learned, it starts segmenting them automatically.
Mhm.
And you would never be able to think that, oh my God, like these devices can cluster together in a segment because the neural network can find these hidden correlations. And then we can then apply different pricing mechanisms, different ad formats, different types of creative on those different segments and extract more performance for our clients. So that's where, that's how we use neural networks in our company.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's very interesting how you do that, and how beneficial they are to what you're doing. I mean, how do you see the space evolving with AI now? I mean, you're on top of all the latest trends that are happening in AI. Do you see it completely disrupting the space in the ways I mean that it already has with what you're doing? Do you see that going much further? And like how
Uh,
so?
Look, I think we are at the very beginning stages of what AI can do, right? I feel that all the different things that are like, call them like manual redundant tasks will disappear in the next 2 years. And there are many tasks in advertising, right? I'll give you a very like advertising operational example, okay, which nobody really talks about. So advertising is a lot of hands-on keyboard because you have, while there's AI doing things, you still have to code into the system what the advertiser is, what creatives are there, right? Like, and you have to push and pull some levers in the system for the AI to do some stuff. Okay. So those people are called ad operations folks. And there's a huge industry built on just this human capital arbitrage, where there's massive companies who are saying that, hey, you know what? You have so many dollars to run. You have to log into, XYZ platform, including Aarki, and you have to code up the computer in a way that, Aarki understands or Google understands, right? Why don't I, as a company, take that off your hands and provide cheap labor to you? Okay. So that's human capital arbitrage, right? Very simple and straightforward. This company, like they'll say that, I have people in like some other country offshore who can do this for you much cheaper. Okay. And they'll take a cut in the middle. I think that's just exploitation. Okay. And that industry is billions of dollars. I think with AI, that industry will disappear. Not because those people will disappear or they will not have a job, but those middlemen will disappear. Okay.
Mm.
And just think of it this way. If I give you an agent who just makes you 10x more productive in your job, would you not do that versus hire some other folks from in another random country?
Right.
Right.
That's probably better cost too.
Exactly. So I think, I think of AI as an Iron Man suit for, everybody, right? It's not like it'll take your job away, but it'll just make you 10x more productive. So you can focus on things where, you can use Brain GPT versus Chat GPT,
That's a new. It's a good term there.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like looking at that way too. I think that it takes away a lot of the different like monotonous aspects of what you have to spend your time on, and just gives you more time to be creative. If you view it like that, it's much better. And
Exactly.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
I
it.
mean, I tell people, people ask me like, hey, is AI going to take jobs away? And I tell them no. Like, I think that's a fallacy. I think nobody's taking any jobs away. It's just going to make you more productive. So you have more time in the day to do things that you actually love and only humans can do, right? Like creative things only humans can do. Yes, AI can help you, but they cannot create new ideas.
Yeah, they're not. It's not the same. But if you're super creative and then you kind of work with I think you're in a different place because you have a
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. So how do you think about privacy today? And especially in the age of AI and with advertising, I mean, you're handling probably a lot of different important data. How does privacy kind of come into play now?
Sure. So I think, look, privacy is very, very important in our world. Okay. We work very closely with Google and Apple, right? Like Apple is very privacy centric company. Google is as well, in different ways, but both of them have their own rules and regulation. It- We also work in Europe, so we are very, very, focused on the GDPR compliance. We have our own servers in Europe, like, as I said, right? Because we have to be GDPR compliant. So I think we take privacy very seriously. And I feel like if you kind of go, zoom out to like say 2 years from now, I feel like the age of hyper personalization as we know it might be over, and you have to be more creative in terms of how you look at context of what the user is viewing, and then how you create your ad in real time using Gen AI, right? So I think the day, like like I'm sure you have seen, like you go to some website and boom, like you start seeing those ads. I think those days are going to be gone, and I feel like the days of AI powered contextual advertising are upon us, and I think we are building towards that. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because it gives user the power of sharing data or not sharing data, maybe getting rewarded for it in some way, shape, or form in the future if they share data, right? And then it becomes very important for companies like us to make sure that our advertisers' interests are served in a very privacy compliant fashion. I think that's how I think about it. Lots of work has to be done still, I think, with lots of governing bodies, including the companies I mentioned. But I think we are all working together for that future.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest benefits of AI in advertising is going to be just relevance. I mean, you find like, I mean, you know this probably better than I do, but I mean, you look at like the skipping of ads and just moving away from ads and stuff. And if ads are done right and they're relevant enough, people don't. I think a lot of people don't mind them. Like they don't really have that much
I
problem.
I totally agree with you. I think like Facebook or Meta has done a really good job with that, especially with Instagram ads. They just know what you want, right? And you want to see that ad. So I think people have done a lot of, obviously, Facebook has invested a lot in AI as well, right? They're one of the biggest buyers of the NVIDIA chips. So I think we are seeing this world in some way, shape, or form, and I think it'll be available to everybody soon enough. But every company has to work at its own, I think, timeline, and also companies like us are also beholden to the industry standards of the companies we work with. So I think we will all get there. People who have their own kind of walled gardens probably can get there faster.
Hmm. Yeah, makes sense. So what's your roadmap right now? Like what's kind of top of mind for you to build out? What are you most excited about development
Sure.
wise in
So
advertising
look,
AI space?
so I think like my vision is very simple. If you look at, if you exclude like the walled gardens like Google and Facebook, the industry we work in, which is mobile in-app advertising, there's two or three companies which own the lion's share of the ecosystem. And I always question like how can three companies control like call it $200 billion market, right? Or $300 billion market in the future. So I think Aarki wants to be that fourth company who gets in there, and build tools for advertisers that actually really work and delight them, right? Because you don't want you don't want you know garbage ads either, right? You want the right users, you want the valuable users, you want them to have a good experience, you want publishers to have a good experience. So all the efforts we have today are focused on what can we do for our advertisers and how can we help them. We are working a lot on, as I said, privacy compliant, advertising and what that looks like in the future. The other thing we are working on is, Gen AI in terms of creative. How can we assemble an ad in real time, which not only focuses on what the user is viewing today, right, and kind of intersects with what the advertiser's goals are, and make it a seamless experience, right? So I think that's a big effort that we have. And then finally, I think, all the advances in machine learning. How do we process more data faster? How can we respond to more ad calls with the right relevant ads? How can we improve our machine learning models? I think all those things are, on our roadmap. Uh, you know, I tell clients that machine learning is our only product, right? It does not matter what else you see out there. If you don't have good machine learning, we are not doing a good job. And that's the biggest team we have today in the company, if you think about it.
Mhm. I mean, machine learning is changing a lot too all the time. So I guess it's just keeping up with that, building on that, and
Oh,
that's the goal.
100%. 100%. I mean, what was relevant, like think about what DeepSeek did, right, to just the Gen AI models, right? Like they came and kind of changed the paradigm completely. And now even companies like OpenAI are open sourcing, their model, they have to, right? So I think things are changing so rapidly. We have to keep up with that. And our goal is, to actually, create more innovation in the advertising arena. I'll tell you something. We want to get towards, like people talk about AGI, right?
Mhm.
Artificial general intelligence. I want to build AdGI, advertising general intelligence. That's my goal.
That's awesome. Well, that was all the questions that I had, Aman. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think it's great that you're applying this technology to the advertising space. I mean, it's a space where every dollar you spend as a company really matters, and if you don't have the right kind of conversion on that and the right optimization, it can entirely affect the way your business is. So it's one of the most important areas to apply AI to and to be most efficient and cost effective in. And I think it's great what you've done, and I'm excited to see what you're going to do next. Thanks for doing this.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Had a fun time chatting with you.